Hello and welcome, I'm Jeremy Olivier, and here's what happened this week. Concerns rose over a surge in Chinese military activity around Taiwan earlier this week. It was the largest deployment of China's Navy in decades near the country. But China stopped short of officially announcing any drills, a ploy some say was meant to keep Taiwan on edge. Tiffany Wong reports.
A sudden spike in Chinese military activity close to Taiwan. On Wednesday, Taiwan's Ministry of Defense reported 53 Chinese warplanes near the country. That's the largest single-day number since October, when China sent a record 153 aircraft in response to Taiwan President Lai Ching-te's National Day speech. A day earlier, some 90 Chinese ships were seen in waters around Taiwan. It's the largest naval fleet China has deployed in almost 30 years. Taiwan's presidential office says these apparent unannounced drills represent an alarming and destabilizing development.
中国这样的行径是对印太区域安全稳定现状的公然破坏，更是对国际社会投入不安的变数。
In the past few years, China has grown increasingly aggressive in conducting drills in response to what it views as separatist activity by Taiwan, such as exchanges between government leaders. And many expected a Chinese reaction after Taiwan's president recently spoke with U.S. officials while transiting in Hawaii and Guam during a tour of the country's Pacific allies. But it's unusual for China to carry out maritime drills unannounced, which is what appears to be happening this time around. When asked about the military operations, China's Taiwan Affairs Office remained tight-lipped.
对猜测性的，对这种没有根据的猜测，我们没有评论。
Since Monday, Beijing has set up 7 temporary reserve zones along its coast, spanning 1,000 kilometers off the coastline of Zhejiang and Fujian provinces. These sorts of restrictions on civilian and foreign vessels are often a sign of military exercises taking place, but no official announcement has been made, and Taiwan's defense ministry says it has not detected any live fire in these areas. The ministry says the Chinese ships' maneuvers appear to be practiced for a blockade of Taiwan, and that the operations are disrupting international trade. For now, authorities in Taiwan remain on high alert as they monitor how the situation develops. Howard Zhang and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
U.S. lawmakers have proposed a bill to provide up to $300 million of military support for Taiwan. It's part of the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, for 2025, which funds U.S. defense initiatives in the Indo-Pacific. That includes increased military equipment and training for Taipei. In a news conference in Washington, D.C., U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson said the bill is yet to be confirmed. 2 members of Taiwan's National Security Council have traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with people close to President-elect Donald Trump, according to Reuters. The report cites several sources familiar with the matter, saying the officials are both senior members of the Security Council. It was not clear who exactly they will meet with or what topics will be discussed. China's foreign ministry responded, saying the U.S. should not, quote, send any wrong signals to Taiwan independent separatist forces. Taiwan's presidential office called the exchanges routine. They and the Trump transition team declined to comment further. Earlier this week, President Lai Ching-te met with a Senate delegation from Poland who offered support for Taiwan participating in international organizations, while also promising deepened cooperation on technology and trade. The visit comes 1 week after Taiwan and Poland signed an MOU to collaborate on space technology. For more on Taiwan's relationship with Poland, Alec McDonald spoke to Marcin Jaskula, a senior advisor at the Taiwan-Poland Chamber of Commerce.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between Taiwan and Poland's space sector?
So the MOU between the Taiwanese Space Agency, TASA, and the Polish Space Agency, POLSA, lays a ground for fostering both countries' relationship in the space sector. It gives us and our companies a platform for engagement with very clearly predefined sectors and pillars of this cooperation, which is the space propulsion technologies for space launchers and satellites, the space situational awareness, and also the Earth observation technologies and downstream services. These are the 3 pillars that Taiwanese Space Agency has identified as core subjects for cooperation, and Polish Space Agency has answered to them, and this is what we're going to be pursuing and developing next year.
With propulsion systems come rockets and rocket launches. Taiwan currently does not have capabilities to launch rockets domestically. Is this something that TASA is hoping to provide in the next coming years?
Poland and Taiwan are in the similar space at the moment when it comes to rocket technologies. They both do suborbital rockets. However, in Poland at the moment we have reached a milestone recently with sending one of our suborbital rockets to 100 kilometers using nitrogen peroxide as a propellant. So this is something that TASA is looking at currently, and we feel like next year might be the year of first tests being conducted here in Taiwan.
Zooming out, how would you describe the state of Polish and Taiwanese relations right now?
All-time high by far. We see a very, very good engagement between our nations. Ling Jiarong's, the foreign minister's recent visit to Poland is definitely a highlight of this growing and tightening relationship. Taiwan has been a great contributor of humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Obviously, they have to deliver this humanitarian aid first to Poland, so then Polish authorities can send them to Ukraine, because there's simply no other way of doing this at the moment. Taiwan was also a very, very good donor of cash donations to Ukrainian cities and hospitals.
That was Marcin Jaskula from the Taiwan-Poland Chamber of Commerce. For more from Zoom In, Zoom Out, please visit TaiwanPlus.com. More abuses of migrant fishers in Taiwan have come to light in a new Greenpeace report on exploitation at sea. Advocates are calling for major reforms to help fishers work in safe environments. Tiffany Wong reports.
Greenpeace Southeast Asia has released a new report on the exploitation that migrant fishers face, detailing 10 incidents of forced labor on 12 Taiwanese fishing vessels since 2019. Taiwan is home to the second largest global fleet of distant water fishing vessels and over 20,000 migrant fishers. The NGOs detailing abuses Indonesian workers have experienced here. They said they found that 92% of the fishers they interviewed felt that they were taken advantage of, and many of them were trapped into staying in exploitative work environments due to debt. 2/3 also reported having their wages withheld, and cases of physical violence and threats in the workplace were also reported. Greenpeace says exploitative Indonesian recruitment agencies and lack of oversight on the Taiwanese fishing companies means fishers easily fall into forced labor.
那用弱势处境的话，其实就是非常多的渔工，其实只有非常短的时间可以看他的合约，或者是签署一些他看不懂的中文文书，或者是甚至还有发生伪造证件跟训练文书的这个情况发生，就代表这些渔工呢可能陷入一个非法工作，或者是他不知道自己到底要去哪里的这个情况。
Migrant fishers in Taiwan are mostly from Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. And this NGO hopes that with more regulations on these recruitment companies and more oversight on Taiwanese fishing vessels, they can work in a safe and humane environment. John Su and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
A Taiwanese man on death row has had his sentence commuted to life in prison. It's the first such case since a September ruling reviewed the constitutionality of capital punishment in Taiwan. Cadence Croanta has this report.
2 years after killing 8 people, including his own wife and children, one man has escaped a death sentence, which has instead been commuted to a life in prison, a major turn in one of Taiwan's most high-profile murder cases. The man set fire to a tire store in Hsinchu back in 2022, killing 8 people, and initially was sentenced to death for the crime. His sentence was reduced today after judges ruled that he's since shown remorse for his crime, even attempting to take his own life while in custody. Family members of the victims gathered outside the court today to express their disdain over the court's decision in an extremely emotional press conference.
如此重大的罪犯都可以免死，那真的是法死了。
The question raised by that relative of the victims about when is appropriate to use the death sentence is a question that's been raised by others in Taiwan recently. In September this year, Taiwan's then 37 death row inmates brought the topic of capital punishment before the courts, arguing the right to life was enshrined in the Constitution. The courts ruled that the death penalty was partially constitutional, but that its scope should be narrowed and only used in the most serious cases. Today's ruling appears to be a narrowing of that scope, and while there are voices on both sides of the debate, surveys show that 80% of Taiwan's public is in support of the death penalty. But despite its popularity, it seems it may start to be implemented less than before. Alex Chen, Joseph Wu, Reese Ayers, and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
A proposal to open the service sector to migrant workers has angered labor activists already on hunger strike over government policies. They say officials are making decisions without consulting workers, and that workers won't stand being ignored any longer. John Van Trieste reports.
Labor activists gather across from the headquarters of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. For 3 days, they've been camped out by the Labor Ministry demanding changes to the law, from better overtime pay to the return of public holidays cut from the calendar. Some are even on a 100-hour hunger strike. As they see it, though, far from listening, ruling party officials are adding to the list of grievances. And so they've stepped away from their camp this morning to protest, hoping these officials will see their anger. What set off this morning's protest are fresh reports officials have floated the idea of opening Taiwan's service sector to migrant workers in a Tuesday night meeting with business interests. There would be conditions. Local workers' salaries would have to go up first. But these protesters are skeptical.
那它是会每年提升，还是一次性提升？而且有没有规定最低要提升多少？而不要只是丢一个新闻出来，搞得好像是他说了算。
They say migrant labor is something that needs to be properly assessed beforehand. They're concerned about local workers being pushed out of the service sector, which they say is often a safe backup for those who lose their jobs or can no longer do them due to age. Lastly, they are frustrated at what they see as a double standard in the government's treatment of labor versus capital.
增加国定假日，还有提高加班费率，政府都会一直强调必须要有社会共识。那我们工会团体就想问，请问我们现在卓院长除了跟商总讨论以外，有没有跟哪些工会团体有讨论过？那这就是为什么让我们绝食的代表觉得说，对卓院长来说，我们的行政院、我们的执政党，是不是跟资方团体说好了，就是社会共识？
Protesters don cardboard cutout masks representing the president, labor minister, and moneyed interests, with the labor minister and president working to keep these interests happy. After this performance, the protesters head back to their labor ministry encampment. No official or party rep has stepped out, but they say they aren't done yet. In fact, the chief hunger striker says they intend to get louder about their demands.
12月21号，我们会在自由广场有一个公务部门的员工自己自办的尾牙，会有活动啊。然后1月2号我们会有一个尊严修法联盟会有一个活动。
And even just today, these groups have more planned, starting with a protest against workplace bullying back at the Labor Ministry. Whether they get an official response or not, this small but animated group says it isn't going to be quiet anytime soon. Scott Huang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Here's What Happened. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we bring you images of the first public mass at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris since it was damaged by a fire in 2019. I'm Jeremy Olivier. Take care and see you next week.